I invite you to revisit the Doctrine and Covenants section 89 with us today, and ask that you think deeply on the matter. Pray and discover how your everyday choices in following the word of wisdom to a greater extent can improve the lives of your family and for others unseen. The word of wisdom contains important principles that guide us to avoid harmful substances with the promise of blessings, not only in a context of health. There are abundant spiritual blessings for ourselves as well as our earth. Most of us are familiar with the word of wisdom, but we seem to cut ourselves short in following all the wise counsel it contains. There are some particular verses I'd like to highlight. Let's begin at verse 3, which starts out by saying that the word of wisdom is given for a principle with a promise adapted to the capacity of the weak and the weakest of all saints, who are or can be called saints. So it's something that everyone should be able to follow. We are not asked to do something that is beyond us. It is a principle with a promise. Let's skip verse 4 for just a moment. Verses 5 through 9 I'll summarize, but it warns against strong drink, alcohol, and also tobacco and hot drinks. We know that our bodies are blessed when we avoid these things. Our minds are clearer as the body is not dependent on addictive substances, and we are financially blessed by avoiding these vices as well. Most of us are following verses 5 through 9 as second nature, but can we do more to incorporate the rest of the word of wisdom into our daily lives? Is there further promise for abundance contained in the last half of the word of wisdom? Let's jump to verses 12 and 13. Yea, flesh also of beasts and of fowls of the air, I the Lord have ordained for the use of man with thanksgiving. Nevertheless they are to be used sparingly. And it is pleasing unto me that they should not be used, only in times of winter, or of cold, or famine. We've all read this before, but why is it that verses 5 through 9 seem so direct and so easy to follow, while 12 and 13 are largely ignored? It's not that most of us consciously overlook the rest of the word of wisdom, but the answer to why this happens, perhaps, can be found in verse 4. Behold, verily thus saith the Lord unto you, in consequence of evils and designs which do and will exist in the hearts of conspiring men in the last days, I have warned you and forewarn you by giving unto you this word of wisdom by revelation. Marketing. It is everywhere and has seeped into our daily lives on an unprecedented scale. It's very easy for us to see commercials for alcohol, tobacco, and coffee, and know immediately that we will not be enticed to the empty promises of pleasure, looking cool, or feeling temporarily energized. But food, we all need to eat, and we've been blinded into passively following a dietary lifestyle that is simply not healthy. The marketing tactics come from all angles in food. From inside-funded studies that show products are safe for us to consume, to nutrition experts being taught curriculums that are funded by these industries. They use clever campaigns with bright colors and cartoon characters with enticing packaging to lure our young people into consuming their addictive products. All of this marketing seems so normal and has become an unconscious belief that makes up what is called the standard American diet. The snare of this diet is warned against specifically in the Word of Wisdom, and has been brought to light even further with recent medical studies. For example, in 2015, the World Health Organization classified processed meats as a type 1 carcinogen, right up there with cigarettes. Many of our health epidemics today are caused by our love of meat and other animal products. These large industries market to us without regard to our health, cutting ethical corners to increase profitability and exaggerate a sense of fitting in that will come from purchasing these products. Just like meat, all manner of these products offer us nothing but temporary sustenance at best, lead to an unhealthy body, and have far-reaching consequences for a moment of pleasurable taste and instant gratification. There's clearly a lot we could talk about when it comes to the processed, sugary foods that most of us consume, but let's go back to verses 12 and 13. In verse 12, we read that only with thanksgiving and sparingly should animals be eaten. Verse 13 takes it a step further to say that even then, it is pleasing unto God that they should not be used, and only in times of winter, cold, or famine. Verses 14 through 17 talk about grains and fruits and vegetables, that they are good for the food of man. So if we can just be honest for a moment and admit that we are not doing all that we could to follow this counsel, knowing that there's room for improvement, and also allowing ourselves the opportunity to learn and grow as we make new choices, let's look at some of the direct impacts that not following this counsel is having on our daily lives, and also our children and their children's lives, and for the entire world. Illness and disease, such as cancer, type 2 diabetes, stroke, infections, Alzheimer's, and diseases of the kidneys, heart, respiratory tract, and liver are all linked to meat consumption. They are all proven to be reduced, and in many cases reversed, by eliminating meat products from our diet. That's most of the major health epidemics we're facing in the world today, able to be reduced, and it has nothing to do with taking medication. Our tendencies to eat too much, to live in a state of constant abundance, though not truly being kind to our bodies. Meat consumption is one of the major contributing dietary factors to obesity, right up there with sugar. But let's also look outside of just the effects on ourselves and our own lives. What about the animals? We all like to think that the animals on our plate came from farms where the animals were loved, lived natural lives, and were cared for until they are slaughtered for food. But this isn't true. A lot has changed even in the last 30 years regarding farming practices. As our population here in the US climbs towards 330 million, and the entire world population climbs towards 8 billion, it simply isn't sustainable in land use, or as profitable for these companies to supply meat in the quantities that we as Americans consume them and let animals live out their lives. Think about it. In almost any market, in almost any city, at any time of day, every day of the year, meat is abundantly available to us. The same is true for eggs and dairy products. This is no small operation, and there is a lot of money to be made. 95% of animal products in the US today come from factory farms. Standard practices in the industry have little respect for life, and the conditions these animals are in before they get to our plate are deplorable. Let's cover this briefly and then conclude with the remaining verses in the Word of Wisdom. Factory farming. The animals in factory farms are kept in confinement, unable to move their entire lives, resulting in rampant disease and misery. Many never see the sunlight and will spend their entire life living in their own feces. They are mutilated to reduce cannibalism and forced to grow faster and larger than they would naturally. Many chickens cannot support their own weight and die slow and painful deaths. More than 70% of the antibiotics produced in the US are fed to animals to keep them alive in conditions where naturally they would die. These industries come up with clever terminology to hide the truths behind their operations. Terms like cage-free and free-range are meant to make us feel better about our purchases and imply better living conditions for the animals. It seems like egg production would be humane, as the chicken is kept alive while she produces eggs, but this is far from the truth. In factory farms, most baby male chicks are ground up alive or gassed, usually within their first day of life, as byproducts having no use to the industry. Cows raised for dairy all eventually become beef. Dairy cows only produce milk after giving birth, so they are forcibly impregnated year after year and hooked to painful pumping machines that take more milk than a calf would naturally suckle. Blood and pus are so common in milk that the industries have set allowable levels of how much can go into what's sold in stores. After the cows have given birth, their babies are immediately taken away so that they do not drink the milk that we want for ourselves. The mothers mourn for their children for days. If the calf is a male, it is typically killed within its first month of life as veal if it doesn't grow up to be abused in other ways. Female calves will end up with the same fate as their mothers. Despite advertisements and campaigns over the last 70 years, dairy and eggs offer far more negative health effects than they do to meet our nutritional needs. The conditions these beings are forced into are not healthy or natural, and are devoid of compassion, love, or necessity. Surely when God gave Adam dominion over animals, this is not what he had in mind. Animals are not simply food products, but thinking, feeling individuals who want to enjoy their lives and are capable of experiencing love and attachment and pain, fear, and suffering. This is not the worst of it. The workers in these factory farms often suffer from PTSD and other mental ailments from hearing these animals cry out in vain for their lives before being violently killed day in and day out. entire communities, particularly minorities and low-income families, are exploited to fill these jobs for the demand we provide to these industries. The communities that live nearby these factory farms regularly suffer illnesses such as cancers and asthma. This, too, is not the worst of it. What about the planet? Animal agriculture is one of the largest detriments to the planet at this time. The methane gas produced by cows alone is greater than all forms of transportation combined. Animal agriculture is the largest source of deforestation, and while we don't see much of that here, other parts of the world are experiencing the ecological effects of losing these forests as they outsource land to grow crops for meat production for other countries. These factory farms create deep cesspools that pollute communities, rivers, streams, and create long-lasting damage to the land and water. Animal agriculture and other sources of pollution have created a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico over 8,500 miles in size. More resources are required to raise animals for food. An equal caloric volume of plants for human consumption can be grown on less land and with less water. We could truly feed the entire world using the same amount of land and resources with less pollution if we all removed meat, dairy, and eggs from our plates. How did we become so distanced from the unimaginable suffering created by these industries to the perfect packaging that has become so convenient for us to not give a second thought for the lives of these animals? While the greed of these industries exists as a quick way to make money, the demand comes from us as the consumer. It is our own disconnected and selfish appetites that pay with our money for this to happen. There is a hidden cost behind the price tag of everything we buy. Every year, over 56 billion farmed animals are killed worldwide by humans, not including fish and other sea creatures. We have a chance to vote with our wallets for what we want to see in this world. So we need to ask ourselves, is our health disposable? Is the planet disposable? Is life disposable? Will we allow others on our behalf to treat God's loving creatures, these beautiful animals, as a commodity? As a disposable body with no value in creation other than a price tag and a 15-minute meal? Surely these beings with whom we have been entrusted deserve better. There is a solution and a better way to eat. It has never been easier to follow the word of wisdom than it is today. Combined with our advances in technology that connects the world like never before, where fruits and vegetables are available year-round, we have such a wonderful opportunity to easily remove animals and their byproducts from our plates, which can help solve world hunger and help nations survive famine. To live compassionately through a plant-based diet, we can reduce and reverse diseases and live in a true abundance. There is so much to be learned about all that is going on in the world around us that I can't possibly cover it all with you today, but I want to get back to the last and perhaps the most important parts of the word of wisdom. Verse 10, "And again verily I say unto you, all wholesome herbs God hath ordained for the constitution, nature, and use of man." Please seek out more to learn how wholesome plants and foods can heal your ailments. Let food be your medicine. Verse 18, "And all saints who remember to keep and do these sayings, walking in obedience to the commandments, shall receive health in their navel and marrow to their bones, and shall find wisdom and great treasures of knowledge, even hidden treasures, and shall run and not be weary, and shall walk and not faint. And I the Lord give unto them a promise, that the destroying angel shall pass by them as the children of Israel, and not slay them. Amen." I invite you to learn more. The author Jane Birch has a short 12-minute video and a great book written on the topic about how a plant-based diet fully aligns with the word of wisdom. Links to documentaries, recipes, ways to get started, including an LDS Whole Food Plant-Based Support Group on Facebook, are included at the end of this video. Learn all that you can on this topic, and I hope that you will pray on the word of wisdom further so that your family, community, and the world can benefit from this good counsel.